All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're heading deep into the ancient jungle of the Panchatantra. Now, you might know these texts as simple animal fables, bedtime stories, but we are going to decode them as something far, far more profound. We're looking at them as a highly sophisticated, completely ruthless manual for power, manipulation, and survival. Because let's be honest, this isn't just about lions and jackals. It's about the timeless and sometimes dark dynamics of human nature. So here's the ultimate million-dollar question. How on earth do you defeat an enemy you just cannot physically overpower? We've all been there, right? The odds are totally stacked against you. Well, we're going to explore this by analyzing two brilliant ancient stories. And we're not treating them as children's tales. We're breaking them down as real-world, high-stakes case studies in asymmetrical warfare and political sabotage. Section 1. The Ancient Survival Playbook. To really get what's going on in these texts, I want you to picture this ancient jungle like a cutthroat modern corporate boardroom, completely packed with highly dangerous political archetypes. We're going to contrast two distinctly different threats you might face in any hierarchy. On one side, you've got the overt, aggressive brute force of a tyrant, the threat staring right in your face. But on the other side, you have the covert, whispered, toxic influence of a manipulative subordinate. And that's the threat you often don't even see until it is way too late. Section 2. Brains over brute force. Let's dive into our first case study, examining that overt threat. Meet Basurika. He's this massively powerful lion who is basically just indiscriminately terrorizing his subjects. Desperate and literally facing extinction, the animals band together. But they don't beg. Instead, they use this brilliant psychological framing to survive. They drop this aphorism to convince the lion that taking a daily sacrifice of just one animal is actually a smart, wealth-building strategy. It's genius. They play perfectly to his ego and his lazy desire for effortless, sustained power. And guess what? It absolutely works. The lion takes the deal. But, true to his tyrannical nature, he throws in a terrifying condition. He threatens to eat every single one of them if he doesn't get his meal delivered right on time every single day. So, boom, the ticking clock starts. Every day an animal is sacrificed. That is, until the deadly lottery falls upon a very unwilling, but very clever little hare. Section 3. The hare's deception. So when it's finally the hare's turn to be lunch, he's like, yeah, no thanks. I'm not just going to submit. Instead, he executes an absolute masterclass in asymmetrical warfare. It's this perfect three-step plot. First, he deliberately shows up late, right at sunset, just to provoke the starving lion's fury, because emotion clouds judgment, right? Second, he invents a totally fictional rival lion to trigger Basurika's massive ego. And third, he prepares to weaponize the terrain itself. When our hare finally saunters in, he just expertly stokes the lion's paranoia. He leverages his ancient wisdom about how you have to suppress enemies and diseases at the very beginning before they destroy you. He paints this fake rival as an urgent, immediate threat who's hiding out in a stronghold and, get this, has taken 4 other hares hostage. He's intentionally manufacturing a completely false sense of extreme urgency. To push him over the edge, the hare cites a specific military maxim about how a single archer behind a castle wall can fight off 100 men. He's intentionally goading the impatient Basurika, knowing full well the lion's pride won't let him back down. The hare manipulates the lion into completely ignoring the golden rule of warfare: never, ever attack an unknown enemy without discovering their true strength first. And the climax of this strategy? Purely psychological. The hare leads the furious, unthinking lion over to a deep well, telling Basurika his rival is hiding inside. The foolish lion looks down, sees his own reflection, hears his own roar echoing back at him, and in a total blind rage, leaps in to attack it. The tyrant literally drowns himself, and the hare just walks away, completely unharmed. Unbelievable, right?
Moving on to Section 4, the art of manipulation.
Now we're pivoting from physical survival to political survival against a schemer. Enter Damanaka. He's a manipulative jackal, and his primary weapon is dissension. Feeling completely sidelined at court, he sets out to manufacture conflict and division between the mighty King Pingalaka, who is a lion, and the king's absolute closest friend and advisor, an ox named Sanjivaka. Damanaka's execution is just flawless. He sidles up to King Pingalaka, faking this incredibly heavy grief. He acts like the loyal servant bearing a terrible, terrible burden. And then he drops the bomb. He falsely claims that Sanjivaka is actively plotting the king's assassination to steal the throne. Just like that, he plants a highly toxic seed of doubt directly into the king's ear. Section 5. The danger of bad counsel. Here is where Damanaka's true dark brilliance really shines. He systematically isolates the king by exploiting the inherent vulnerabilities and paranoia of leadership. It's fascinating how this builds in the text. In this internal monologue, Damanaka reveals he knows exactly how dangerous it is for a king to trust one advisor too much. The twisted irony here? He is framing Sanjivaka for the exact power-hungry behavior that he himself is doing, all so he can slide right into that vacated role. To completely shatter the king's loyalty, Damanaka attacks what Sanjivaka fundamentally is. He points out to the Lion King that his best friend is a mere grass eater. He argues, what strategic value does an ox have in a carnivorous court surrounded by carnivorous enemies? None. It's a highly calculated move to create an us versus them mentality, making the ox look completely alienated and useless, perfectly setting the stage to justify killing him. And the real tragedy of this whole story is that King Pinkaleka actually pushes back at first. He genuinely loves his friend. He makes this beautiful argument that it's foolish to cut down even a poisonous tree if you planted it with your own hands. It really shows his deep, deep reluctance to betray Sanjivaka. The king is desperately trying to hold on to his loyalty and his own good nature. But man, Damanaka is just relentless. He counters the king's mercy by bluntly stating that a king simply cannot afford a nonviolent creed. He weaponizes this aphorism, warning the king that keeping the company of the so-called wicked ox will ultimately lead to his own ruin. He successfully twists things around, painting the king's loyalty not as a virtue, but as a fatal strategic weakness. So what's the big takeaway from these incredible texts? It's that physical strength, like the roaring power of the lion, is essentially nothing without psychological framing. The absolute most dangerous threat in the jungle, or, your office, often isn't the roaring beast you can see coming a mile away. It is the trusted advisor, the whispering jackal, systematically isolating you with lies and terrible counsel. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to take a hard look at the power dynamics in your own life. Think about it. You might have the resilience to handle the overt tyrants, the Bashrukas of the world. But ask yourself this final, vital question. Are you wise enough to spot the Damanakas? Are you truly immune to the whispering jackal?